hotels that have got loads of character. In terms of price, it is a city, but when you said comparing with Hong Kong, what tends to happen with Macau tends to be busier at weekends and not so busy midweek. So what we usually say to people is for the best value to be in Macau would be midweek rather than at weekends when it can get quite busy in the hotels there.
Is it easy to get around?
Yeah. As I said before, it's quite a small place, which makes it quite easy to get around. Bus and taxi is currently the main way to get around. It's very convenient and very inexpensive. You can hire cars and bikes as well if you want.
But what is there actually to see and do once you're there?
There's lots, particularly for somewhere that, as I've said, is not desperately large. I guess the jewel in the crown, really, of Macau is what's known as the Historic Centre of Macau, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It was recognised by UNESCO in 2005. And it's a collection of over 20 buildings of Portuguese and Chinese origins. So you've got Baroque churches, you've got lovely temples, you've got elegant squares. It's a really lovely area to walk around. Lots of little alleys and lots of character. The iconic building of Macau is called the Ruins of St. Paul's, which is the facade of a beautiful old church. And the oldest building is called the Armagh Temple, which dates back to the late 1400s. So beautiful traditional Taoist temple. So that's really the key historic attraction. It's definitely a place where you eat really well. The food in Macau is incredible. And so it's a good dining destination from all levels. The Macau Tower is a key attraction. It's 388 meters high. It's one of the tallest towers in the world. So you get really spectacular views across the Pearl River Delta. And actually there are lots of exciting things to do at the Macau Tower. You can do a skywalk, which is you go almost to the top of the tower and you get tethered on and can walk around the outside of the tower. Or if you're really, really brave, it's actually got the world's highest bungee jump. Certainly that's not one that I would do, but many, many people do. There's an amazing show called The House of Dancing Water, which is a bit like a Cirque du Soleil type show, but it's over and in and under and around a huge pool. So people are doing high diving acrobatics into the water. It's really breathtaking, and there's nothing like it anywhere else. In the south of Macau, there's a lovely laid-back area called Coloane, where there's villages, beaches, and down there is a giant panda pavilion. Macau has a couple of giant pandas, which were gifted to them by mainland China, so you can go and visit the pandas down there. And there's a great nightlife in Macau, great bars, clubs, and casinos. There's a number of casinos in Macau, so you can have a great night out at the tables.
You said you haven't done the bungee jump. But
Yes.
have you actually done the skywalk itself?
No, I must admit I haven't, because I'm not very good with heights, but I know lots of people that have. And in fact, one of the members of my team has done the bungee. So in fact, she's done 3 bungees around the world, and Macau was her third one. So yeah. I've seen people do them regularly, and people that love those kind of adrenaline sports. It's a great place to do it. It's a really spectacular place to do it.
I do fancy the skywalk, but I don't think I'll be doing the bungee jump.
Yeah, no, the skywalk's great actually. Yeah, and to say you're tethered on, so yeah, you feel very secure when you're doing it, as I understand it.
I just hope it's all strong enough to take my weight. Let's just have to try.
I think so.
Hong Kong gets used as a stopover to go to Australia, New Zealand, and etc. How would Macau compare with that?
Yeah, it's a great stopover alternative to Hong Kong, and because, as I mentioned earlier, there are direct high-speed ferry links from the airport. It makes it very easy. So easy. So you could get off your flight from the UK and Hong Kong, not clear immigration in Hong Kong, but get the high-speed ferry straight over to Macau for however long you want, and then go straight back to the airport and carry on for your flight to Australia or New Zealand. So it works very well for that.
Gary Fitz here, every Monday, 10 o'clock. Coming up, we've got Eric and Ernie. Join me here on Seclo Sounds.
In your smile.
It's from 1975, Eric and Ernie were 4...
Gary, it's not Eric and Ernie, it's Earl and Ernie, the Cape Brothers, Union Man.
Oh, I see. Gary Fitz here, every Monday, 10 o'clock. Earl and Ernie.
You're listening to the John Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org. You're listening to the John Guinn Travel Show Reviewer 2014 Part 1. We've now reached up to March, and in March I covered destinations such as Tenerife, New Zealand, Cayman Islands, Grenada, Israel, and the consumer advice included how to complain and how to travel for the Easter holidays with the advice from the AA. Also, we spoke to Planet Whale to find out how they're helping to reduce the damage done to the whales in the ocean. And also, I spoke to Mark Watson from Tourism Concern, and I'll be playing his interview in a few moments. During 2014 and a little bit of like the end of 13, I got to go out a little bit to record interviews in the field, and this is one such interview where there's a lot of background noise, but because of the information I believe is very important, I still continued with the interview anyway. And we're going to find out who Tourism Concern are, why they are around and what they're trying to do. Some people may feel that they're just trying to ruin people's holidays, but when you look at a holiday, there's more than just your enjoyment, there's the enjoyment of the locals as well, and any damage done to the environment. So it is very important that the travel companies do pay particular attention to the plight of the locals, as well as making sure you have a great time. But anyway, here's the interview I did with Mark Watson from Tourism Concern.
We are the only charity that campaigns for ethical and fair trade tourism. We want to try and make sure that tourism benefits the destination communities, and in that way people get a better holiday as well. So.
Okay, when did you start?
The organisation's been going for 21 years now, so 1989 actually we started.
That's quite a while.
Very long time, yes. And we're still the only charity doing this sort of work.
The only one. Okay. Yeah. You're at a travel show. What's your goal of being here today?
Well, what we're saying, we're not against people going on holiday. We want people to have a better holiday, but people make informed choices about their holiday decisions. Tourism can be a huge force for good. It can create jobs. It can help protect natural resources. It can be, there's a good cultural exchange. I think, there's lots of benefits from people going on holiday. Okay. Yep. But quite often it has a lot of negative impacts as well. There's exploitation of workers. There is, overdevelopment. People being diverted off of their land for tourism development. Resources such as water being diverted towards tourists rather than local people. So what we want people to do is to make informed choices about their holidays, so they can try and make their holidays better for them, but also better for the people that they're visiting.
Okay, these resources being diverted, is that just what people class as third world countries, or is it any country around the world?
Well, our main impact, most of our work is in developing countries, and that's where the biggest impacts are. But the diversion of water, for instance, is a big issue in developing countries, in islands, but also in places like the Alps, where water is being used, to produce artificial snow or whatever, and it's actually having impacts there as well. We do work on all-inclusive resorts. A lot of the all-inclusive resorts have very little benefit to the local community. Now that happens in the Caribbean, but it also happens in places like Spain and Italy and Greece. So yes, it's across the board really. We're actually at the moment looking at workers' rights in some of the UK hotels, because a lot of the hotels are paying a very low wage to a lot of the workers there and outsourcing the stuff. And so that's essentially, particularly in the UK, where people are getting tax credits, the taxpayers subsidising workers so people can stay in 5-star hotels in London, and that doesn't seem right either.
No, I have to agree with you, it doesn't seem right, and it's not a destination people have automatically would have thought of.
No, and I think there are impacts, and that's really, I say our main concern is in developing countries, because I think that's where, tourism can be a real force for good and be used to help for international development. But there are impacts right across the world, so it's not just restricted to developing countries.
Okay. What would have been your biggest success so far, do you think, campaigning-wise?
Well, there's a number of different campaigns. The one that I particularly like is our Porters campaign. A lot of people go on trekking holidays, and the porters are quite often, the trekkers themselves go with the most expensive, equipment that they can possibly buy, and yet the porters are quite often having to carry all their stuff, but wearing flip-flops Some of them are using plastic bags as waterproofs, and they, you know, in the evening, a lot of them are having to sleep outside in the snow. Now, this obviously, the porters are getting altitude sickness, they're getting ill, they're getting frostbite, people are losing, you know, porters are losing their toes and feet because of this. So our campaign is to have ethical trekking, is to get the UK tour operators to sign up to a code of conduct for porters. And we work very closely with the porters' unions in Tanzania, in Nepal, etc., to develop this code of conduct. And it's very simple, 6 simple steps that, you know, that people should look out for their porters. And that's been very successful. A lot of the UK tour operators now have signed up to that. We're still campaigning on that to get the last few remaining to sign up. We also want consumers, travellers themselves, to understand the issues. So, you know, I don't think it's just about lobbying the industry. I think each of us has a responsibility as a traveller to make sure that we minimise our negative impacts and maximise our positive benefits when we travel to a destination.
Okay, what should a tourist look out for when they're away?
Well, I think it's for people to make, you know, people need to understand some of the issues where they're travelling to. So find out. I mean, people should find out where they're going and some of the issues around that. And that sounds, you know, common sense. But, you know, I have heard people where they didn't even know where they've been on holiday because they've just flown into a country, stayed in a resort somewhere and never engaged with the local people. And I think that's a very negative form of tourism. Yeah. I think, you know, one, there's no economic benefit to the local community, but also there's none of that cultural exchange. I mean, one of the reasons we want to travel is meet new people, meet cultures and understand different ways of living. And I think that's a very important part of travel. So, you know, I think I'd say to people, come to our website, find out what there might be issues in that country. We've done a lot of work in Burma, for instance. There was a boycott in Burma, a tourist boycott for many years. That boycott has been lifted, but, you know, you can still, there is a way you can travel to Burma that's going to benefit the local people more than it is the government, which is still quite repressive out there. So, and in other destinations that might be the case. Tomorrow we're doing a talk on travelling to politically sensitive countries such as Sri Lanka, Zimbabwe, Burma, etc. We're not saying people shouldn't travel there, but there are ways that you can do that to minimise the negatives and maximise the positives. And it's just for people to find out really what they're doing. Our website has a host of information for people on that if they want to travel more ethically.
Okay, what is your website? So
It's Tourism Concern. It's www.tourismconcern.org.uk. Also, you can go to ethicaltourism.org.uk as well.
Okay, if somebody was to see something while they're away, should they document it, report it to their tour operator, or contact you in some way?
I think both, really. I think people should. I mean, if they're seeing something, you know, and there's a whole thing to look out, from, you know, child sex exploitation to worker rights being abused, let their tour operator know, I think, but also let us know, because, you know, if there are abuses occurring, we want to know about those as well.
Okay, great. The Foreign and Commonwealth Office, they give tourism advice. Could they do more with their warnings about what to look out for, or do they do enough already?
I think the Foreign and Commonwealth Office do a good job in what they do, and which is what they're telling people whether it's advisable to travel or not. What we're saying is actually is different. I mean, instead of warning people not to go places, we're saying, you know, if you are going to go, these are the things you should look out for, and this is how you can travel where you can actually make things better, rather than just being on the negative. So I think the Foreign and Commonwealth do a good job in warning people where to go and what not to go. Okay. We have worked with them in the past. I mean, although we did have a criticism of one of their travel guides previously where they were advising young people to stay in all-inclusive resorts because it was safer for them, which is probably true, but all-inclusive resorts have very few benefits quite often to the local community, and of course if you're staying in a resort and not leaving the resort, you're not actually having that cultural exchange and meeting people.
Okay. You mentioned your trekking campaign. What else is on the horizon?
Well, we're doing a whole range of issues. We're looking at the impacts on workers who work in all-inclusive resorts. We want to understand whether workers are being disbenefited by working in all-inclusive resorts. There have been big rise in all-inclusive holidays. And obviously, if people have been advised not to take their wallet on holiday because it's all paid for, then actually there's no tipping going on. So a lot of workers are suffering from that. So we're doing a piece of research at the moment to understand what those impacts are. We're looking at poverty tourism, people going on tours of, you know, slums in India, the favelas in Rio. A lot of tourists want to go on those sort of tours. We want to make sure that they are done in such a way that the local community are not being exploited from that, and that gets some benefit from those tours. We are So poverty tourism is a campaign. We're doing work on the trekking campaign is continuing.